Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, the climate guy setting the record straight about climate. NASA used to show 1934 as the hottest year in the United States, but they've since altered their data to make 1934 much cooler. This date in 1934 was one of the hottest on record in the United States. The white dots in this image show all of the stations which were over 90 degrees on July 20th, 1934. The yellow pins show stations which were over 100 degrees, and the red pins show stations which were over an incredible 110 degrees. On this date in 1934, Keokuk, Iowa reached 118 degrees. This was the hottest temperature ever recorded in Iowa. 80% of the U.S. was in drought during July of 1934, and as you can see, most of the U.S. was actually in extreme drought. It was the worst drought in U.S. history. The average temperature across the U.S. on July 20th, 1934 was an incredible 95 degrees. The only other year that got that hot was 1901. The coolest July 20th on record in the United States was in 2014 at 83 degrees, which was 12 degrees cooler than 1934. NASA and NOAA say that 2016 was the hottest year on record, but it was actually 6 degrees cooler than 1934 on July 20th. Almost 35% of U.S. stations were above 100 degrees Fahrenheit on July 20th, 1934, compared to last year, which was supposedly the hottest year ever, when less than 5% of stations were above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Also note that much more of the U.S. experienced 100-degree weather during the 1930s than in recent years. July 20th, 1934 was not only the hottest day on record in Iowa, it was also the hottest day on record in Omaha, Nebraska, when they reached 116 degrees. This graph shows the hottest temperature recorded on any day of the year at a station located just outside of Omaha, Nebraska. 1934 was the peak at 116 degrees, but since then the hottest temperatures have plummeted. Peak temperatures at Omaha are now at record lows, rarely getting above 100 degrees anymore. It was 116 degrees in Omaha in 1934 and 118 degrees in Iowa. A few weeks ago they had comparable temperatures in Arizona, which actually happen every summer. If you remember, climate alarmists got hysterical about the garden variety heat which was occurring in Arizona. The headlines were full of things like, "The science behind Arizona's record-setting heat wave." It wasn't a record-setting heat wave in Arizona. Arizona's heat is getting worse. No, heat in Arizona isn't getting worse. Global warming, extreme heat in California, Arizona, and Nevada has nothing to do with global warming. It's so hot in the Southwest that airplanes can't take off. That happens just about every summer. Everything is literally melting. I started my undergraduate work at Arizona State University in 1974. That was the year they had their worst heat wave. Phoenix had 18 consecutive days over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. It was also the peak year of the Ice Age scare. As always, everything the climate alarmists are saying is complete nonsense. Now let's go back and look at 1934 again. This animation flashes between NASA's 1999 version of their U.S. temperature graph and their current version in 2017. In their 1999 version, 1934 was the hottest year. And U.S. temperatures had declined from the 1930s through the end of the 20th century. This wrecked global warming theory, so NASA simply changed the data. They dramatically cooled the 1930s and dramatically warmed temperatures at the end of the 20th century. So they turned the cooling trend into a warming trend. This is straight out of George Orwell's 1984. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. In Orwell's 1984, the Ministry of Truth was a government agency whose job was to rewrite the past to meet the needs of the current political regime. And that's exactly what NASA and NOAA are doing. They're rewriting the past to make it look like the United States and the world is warming, when it actually isn't. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.